Welcome to the blockbuster brand new show by the name of Unpublished. Now, you may be wondering, what is Unpublished? Well, Unpublished is a show where I, your host, Nikhil Uttamchandani, will be joined by two stalwarts when it comes to fast bowling. Tymal Mills, England white ball bowler, multi-format bowler, and he's travelled all around the world playing the IPL for the Royal Challengers Bangalore, as well as Shahbaz Choudhry, founder of Pace Journal and someone who I like to call the guru of fast bowling. Every week, we'll be breaking down two PaceBites from Pace Journal, providing more insight into what these talented, fantastic players have to say. So, stick around, don't go anywhere, and be ready to gain so much knowledge on fast bowling.
Welcome to the Pace Journal. Welcome to the Pace Journal.
Ladies and gentlemen, Unpublished here with two amazing guests, as I just told you. Tymal Mills, world cricketer, as well as Shahbaz Choudhry, the fast bowling guru, as I like to call him. And yeah, guys, thanks again for being here. We've got two interesting pace bites to break down, obviously, from the England seamer, Saqib Mahmood. He's done a lot. Let's get into Saqib for 5 minutes. Let's talk about him a bit. Obviously getting into this 30-man squad to play the West Indies in Test cricket. Obviously not lucky enough to make the side yet, but I'm sure that time will come. Shahbaz, firstly with you, what do you make of Saqib, someone that you've been able to spend some time around?
Yeah, I think Saqib is a very exciting talent. I think the thing that really sticks out to me regarding Saqib is the uniqueness of his action. You know, English cricket has got a bit of a reputation for building robots, as they like to say. But Saqib is definitely somebody who, doesn't fit that description. So straight off the bat, he's a standout bowler. And the more I see him, the more unique things I see about him. So yeah, very exciting to see him progress and hopefully do big things for England as well.
Yeah, and Tymal, obviously you being somebody that's represented England, you would know that feeling of how it is to play for England. And from Saqib and what you've seen from him, and where do you see his future lying?
Yeah, he's come on the scene this last couple of years. He's an exciting bowler. As you said, he's been in the England squads now for kind of the best part of the year. He went out to New Zealand, got a couple of opportunities in white ball cricket, and he's in and around the Test squad as well. So they clearly like him in the England setup. He's got good pace. He's got a bit of a different action, as Shahbaz said, which adds a little bit of another dynamic. And he's still young, so. They're obviously wanting him to keep him in the system, keep him around the group, and I'm sure he'll get a go at some point sooner rather than later. But he's had some really good success in county cricket, especially in white ball cricket, especially 50 over cricket in particular. That's where I first saw him. I hadn't played too much against him, but I've seen a lot of him on TV over here, and yeah, he's done really well at the first few years of his professional career.
Yeah, for sure. We're really looking forward to seeing what he can produce, but obviously he would have given Pace Journal a lot of good pace bites, which we're gonna get into too, on the biomechanics of bowling, as well as being big and standing tall in your bowling action. And I know you guys are great in terms of breaking those pace bites down and giving a lot of value to the viewers out there. So thanks again for being here, and let's get straight into it. Before we get into the analysis, let's actually hear what Saqib had to say on biomechanics.
What was going through your mind? Because obviously at 15, you're obviously quite young. You're going to be very raw. You're sort of doing analysis on your own action. What sort of questions came up in your own mind?
Well, so I first remember I went to the Loughborough Cricket Centre when I think it was when I was 14 or 15. So I was on the England programs from 15. So yeah, it would have been 15, and you do the biomechanics stuff, and it was the first time I met Kevin Shine, and he sort of taught me through the things they look at, and they put it all together, and they send you a little PowerPoint, and they sort of rate you in, say, 0 being you don't do it, 1 being you do it a little bit, and 2 being it's where we want you to be. And I think I was 2s across the board, and I was like, so what are these things and what am I looking at? I'd obviously taken a lot of interest in it, and I just wanted to know more about myself, and just wanted to see if there was anything I could potentially improve to get quicker, or just to improve myself as a bowler. So the questions I'd ask was, just if certain things were supposed to be there. Now my front one thing obviously I asked from a young age was my front foot, rather than landing straight, it points a little bit towards leg slip or fine leg, and that was something I obviously wanted to sort out early in my career, but coaches said it was fine. I didn't have any issues. And if I'm right, I think Wakao Yunis actually has something similar as well.
He does, yeah.
So yeah, like I just wanted to take more interest in my action more than anything.
Great value coming from Saqib there. Obviously, someone that would have played at the England circuit that we would have touched on as well. Now, let's start in terms of breaking down that PaceBite, guys. Now, Shahbaz and Tymal, obviously, we know about when bowlers say they want to practice, work on their game, they go in the nets, they work hard. But biomechanics is something that not many people know about. So before we even get too much in detail, I want to hear from both of you, your perspectives. Shahbaz, you can go first on the importance of biomechanics in the nets, in games as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good question. And I think my views on biomechanics have obviously changed quite drastically from 10 years ago, say, till now. And right now, all I would say is that it's a very individual thing, and it should be treated with care, because I feel like it's important to assess yourself and see areas where you can improve. But it's also important to remember that there is a balance and that perfection is a myth. So one of the things that Saqib said in there is that the whole reason he got into biomechanics is because obviously he was on the England pace program. And as part of that, they're going to be breaking things down and trying to make bowlers a lot more efficient. So I think bowlers out there, young bowlers out there, need to know that by being on that England pace program, he would have been with some very knowledgeable and trusted coaches. And I think it's very important when you're doing any sort of analysis on your own action or trying to make changes to your own action that you're 100% sure that it's the right thing to do. And obviously, if you're on the England pace program, you're probably going to have some of the smartest minds in the country helping you and guiding you with those decisions. So I think definitely don't just make those decisions sporadically. Make sure that they're well thought, and seek advice from a good, qualified coach before you even try to go down that road, because it can be a rabbit hole to get into.
Yeah, and he actually spoke about Kevin Shine in the under-15 program when he entered the England setup. So, Tymal, before you come in here, I also just give us, some insight in some way that you would personally analyze your bowling action and deal with the biomechanics from your perspective whilst answering this question.
Yeah, so I've been through this same process that Saqib has been through. I didn't do it at 15. I probably first started, I went through the process when I was around 18, 19, 20. So basically, just to give you some insight into how it works, you go up to Loughborough in our case. That's where the Centre of Excellence is in England. All these kind of scientists, they put these little probes all over your body, these little dots, these kind of little marbles. Put them all over from your hands, all literally cover you head to toe in these marbles, and they stick to you. And then they just record what movements your body makes in all the different positions as you're walking, as you're running, and then eventually as you're bowling. So then it comes up on the screen in terms of, again, all these little dots kind of give you a silhouette of you as a human. And then you bowl a ball, you run, you walk, and then you can see exactly what every single part, moving part of your body is doing. So that's how it works. And then obviously the coaches then analyze it. They look at it. Okay, what is he doing well? What's he maybe not doing well? Where can it be improved? Is there anything that stands out? Okay, no, this needs to change, or things look pretty good. So that's how they do it. That's what Saqib would have gone through. I've been through it a few times. So have a lot of bowlers. So for me, it's not. I don't think I ever really even looked at the results, to be honest. I didn't. It was something that the coaches, so Kevin Shine, who I know very well as well, he'd have gone through it with the S&Cs and looked at it from his point of view. And I think because my action's pretty clean and pretty good, there wasn't that much that then got fed back to me to say, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that. I think I might have seen the footage, of the little kind of figure moving a few times, but it never actually fed its way through to me where I was looking at it on a screen and being like, oh, okay, I do this, I do that, I do that. So it's very different for everybody. But if you can, it's more there to highlight things that maybe, okay, this needs to change just one bit. As Saqib said, he wondered about his ankle and the way his foot was placing, and then he kind of got told, no, it's okay. As long as your body's comfortable with it, it's okay. So it's an interesting thing, and it's mainly there to hopefully catch early guys that do have they're obviously their potential, because they wouldn't be in this program and in the situation where they're using the biomechanical process. But there's some red flags there, and then hopefully from an early age you can iron them out and then reduce injury down the line. So as Shahbaz rightly said, it's you have to be careful with it. You have to make sure that whoever's going through the process with you is trustworthy, because it can lead to obviously tinkering for the sake of tinkering with things.
Yeah, and
Just
I'm glad
quickly-
you touched on. Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, Nikhil. I'm just gonna ask Tymal something, because I've seen the pictures and the videos of when they put those probes on. Have they ever come off? Has one ever just come off?
Yeah, they do all the time. They fly off.
Okay,
So,
all right,
so
all right.
when you're bowling, they're kind of like they're stuck on, but it's not.
Yeah.
Obviously they need to remove it, so it's obviously it's not super glue or anything.
Yeah, because I always wondered,
they do.
like.
Yeah, they definitely fall off. You wear your little kind of headband, and you got loads stuck to your head, and they all fly off all the time. I think as long as most of them stay on for the majority of the test, it's fine. They don't mind the odd falling off now.
Fair play. All right, back to you, Nikhil.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm glad you touched on foot position there, Tymal. We're gonna get to that briefly after I ask Shahbaz this question, because it's something interesting. Because here in the West Indies, I would say we don't have this much, technology. We don't have this type of opportunity for players to get this much testing. But you still see, the likes of the West Indies produce good fast bowlers as well. So obviously, it's really good to have these analytics, Shahbaz. But as Tymal would have said at the end of his stint just now, that sometimes, everybody's not going to have the conventional action. So how do you find that balance, strike that balance between listening to these guys, the coaches that are qualified, as well as knowing your action and bowling within yourself?
Yeah, again, Nikhil, that's a very, very good question. And the honest answer is I wouldn't know what to say to you, because I think, like I said, I think every fast bowler is going to have a certain curiosity about them, where they're going to want to know if they can get better. And with information being so abundant, information is everywhere now. So it's inevitable that these young fast bowlers coming up in the system, having access to all this information, that they're going to be more and more curious. And I honestly think the best form of defense against anything going wrong is to speak to experienced players who've been there and they've done it. That was one of the big driving forces for me to actually start Pace Journal, because when I wanted to make all these radical changes, I never had anyone to speak to, right? Of course, I had my coaches, but I was never able to ring up someone like Tymal and say, Tymal, what do you think about changing your shin lead? What do you think about changing this? What do you think about changing that? And I always ask our guests that same question, like, what is your approach to biomechanics? What is your approach to changing your action? Because just hearing it from somebody who's, credible, who's been there, done it, played at a professional level, it gives you comfort and confidence. And I think that's what it's all about. As you're growing up and coming through the system, you want to just make sure that you're not neglecting something. As Tymal said, if it's a red flag, it needs to be, something needs to be done. But if you're doing it because you're just curious and you want to, I don't know, try and bowl that, you do something magical or create something crazy with your action, just be careful, because that might actually end up, going against you.
Yeah, I think also to make this chat a little bit more relevant to maybe the people that are listening and watching this, 99% of you guys out there won't have access to biomechanics and the facilities and things like that. But something that I'm sure everybody has or will do is, just get somebody to film them whilst they're bowling in the nets. Just film your action. Somebody stands where the umpire is or just behind, and you film and you watch. That's probably the closest, translation that we can get for this particular PaceBite. And it's the same principle. You'll see something, and then you might not like the look of it, or you do like the look of it, or you think you want to tweak. And that's what we're talking about. It's tinkering. Don't just tinker for the sake of tinkering. Just listen to your body, listen to the feeling that you're getting from your bowling. If you're bowling well, you're bowling well. That's the ultimate. So you got to be careful of going down a rabbit hole of just wanting to change all the time. As Shahbaz said, you can kind of relate to that firsthand from your experiences playing cricket growing up. And so just it's something to be very careful with, and don't try and make big changes straight away. If you are going to make changes, they need to be small changes and they need to be gradual.
Yeah, I think that's a
guys,
very, very good point.
Yes, sir. Guys, obviously, last question I want to ask about this PSA, because we have another one to get into, and I know we're pretty strapped for time. One thing, as you touched on it before, Tymal, that Saqib would have pointed out was that from a young age, he asked about his front foot, and his front foot was more pointing towards fine leg or a leg slip. And when he asked questions about it, the coaches said, no, it's not too important. How important do you think? I want to hear from both of you guys. I think it's a very important topic, and a lot of bowlers around the world have this question. Tymal, you can start. How important is it to get that front foot correct and point it towards maybe the wicketkeeper or the stumps, a straight front foot, or is it not even have an influence at all?
Look, it's twofold. I think you need to do what's comfortable for your body. Look, you don't want to be injured. You don't want to be getting ankle injuries, knee injuries, hip injuries, anything like that. But of course, you want everything to be as efficient as possible. You want to, as much as possible, be going in a straight line, and that goes from your run up through the crease once you've delivered the ball. That's the perfect world. But as we all know, the world isn't perfect. Cricket isn't perfect. Bowling isn't perfect. So everybody will have a natural kind of default of where they'll land. And again, just as I said a minute ago, if you film your foot, you look at some footage of yourself and you see, okay, my ankle splays off to the left, to the right, whatever. I want to try and straighten it up. Don't try and do a big change straight away, because your body it won't have it, because your body's, muscle memory is a real thing. You get used to doing something over and over again. It takes a hell of a long time to change it. So if you're going to start with drills and to try and maybe straighten up your front foot, in this case, your ankle, like I'm watching Stuart Broad's playing on TV at the moment. His ankle goes off to the side when he lands. Mark Wood plays for England as well. He goes a long way, and he's had a lot of ankle problems. So if you're going to do something, just literally start with walkthroughs without even letting go of a ball, just a few paces, and then just you can put some little strips down or whatever where you want your foot to land. Try and land your foot in the middle of that every time, and then eventually you can take it back a few paces, get a little bit more momentum, and then build it back up really slowly over the course of days, weeks, whatever. But it's not going to be something that you can just kind of, okay, I'm going to run in off my full run up now and try and land with a straight front foot, and my foot pointing directly down the pitch, because it's just not going to happen like that.
And Shahbaz, let's get a final comment from you on this matter.
Yeah, I think regarding the front foot, I think it's interesting, because I remember I used to close off a little bit, okay, with my front foot. So I used to point down fine leg, and I spent a lot of time with some very well-renowned javelin coaches and throwers, and I remember them saying to me, "Mate, that's a good thing." And I was like, because you're blocking off your hip, it's a good thing. You're not leaking energy. You're actually blocking it off. And I remember my entire perception of front foot landing and everything was like, whoa, this guy's saying it's good. In cricket, they're telling us it's bad. As Tymal said, Stuart Broad, Mark Wood, Jimmy Anderson, these guys have had, their front foots are facing second, third slip sometimes. So I really, as I've grown up, I've started to appreciate that, yes, for some people, these things may flag up as huge sort of areas of concern, but for most, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. So I actually think that for a lot of fast bowlers, they just need something to do. They just need something to do. I'm going to straighten my front foot now. And I remember reading, before interviewing Jofra Archer, I was doing a bit of research, and I had found out that obviously he had some pretty bad back injuries. And in some of the articles that I read, apparently it was because his front foot used to point down fine leg. And because of that, it was causing him to have these surreal back injuries and all that. And I remember when I spoke to him, and he said, yeah, he goes, we did try and straighten my foot up, but to be honest, I don't think it was that. And after hearing that, I thought to myself, what, it's so true, because I think for some, like Mark Wood, somebody who, comes in with an incredible amount of energy and really hits that crease hard, being offset with his foot might have a bigger impact on him compared to someone like Jofra, who we all know doesn't really hit the crease as hard as a Mark Wood. So again, I think it's an individual basis. You should treat that. But at the same time, I don't think these things matter as much as us young fast bowlers like to think, because I can speak from my own perspective. Growing up, I used to think, if I change this a little bit, if I change my arm or change the angle of this, it's going to make me put on a yard or two. And I can say for myself, not for others, that's not the case. So keep your mind clear, man. Cricket is hard enough as it is. So having clarity in the mind is such a blessing to have. So don't get too caught up in those things.
Yeah, great discussion, guys. Thank you so much for that. And just to give the viewers some context, Tymal actually said about Stuart Broad. I think he should have more said about Craig Brathwaite and, you know, Stuart Broad not being able to penetrate. But I'm sure that's a story for another day. Obviously, the West Indies being one up. But whilst we're recording this, yes, the West Indies England Test series is playing the second test. So a lot of cricket going on. Guys, we said about 2 PaceBites. We've had one. Thank you very much for that value. Now, the second one, in terms of getting big in your action, let's hear what Saqib had to say about it.
Feeling big just is a term I use for myself. It's just basically standing tall, you know, feeling like, you know, you almost own the creases. You're bowling down at the batter rather than just skidding them through. You know, you're actually really coming in and hitting that deck hard. And it's just a term I'll use for myself is, you know, I want to feel big. So, yeah, that's what I'd use for myself, if that makes sense.
There you have it. Some great value coming from Saqib Mahmood, as we said. You know, one that I expect will break into the England setup very soon in the future. And this getting big in the action is something that I think a lot of people do not have an awareness to. And I'm sure you guys will agree with that. So let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into it. Feeling big in your action. Obviously, he said in his perspective, it's more standing tall when you're bowling. For both of you guys to start us off, what is feeling big for you? Shahbaz, you can go first.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the most valuable PaceBites on Pace Journal. And I say that because leading into the PaceBite, we were obviously speaking about biomechanics, and Saqib flagged another thing up where he said that he wanted to know the difference in how footage looks and how footage feels. And I'm not sure if we touched on it in this particular conversation, but I know I've spoken to people in the past that sometimes what might look correct doesn't feel correct, but what feels correct doesn't always look correct. And I feel like for Saqib, that cue just helps him bring all of that biomechanical aspect of his game together without having to focus on it too much. Like, okay, my foot here, is my front arm here, is my arm back here. Instead of thinking about all those things, he's able to just use that analogy, I want to feel big here. And I feel like it's a really great way of simplifying the complications of bowling. I want to feel big. That's it. You know, on one side, you've got, all right, I want to land this way. I want to have my arm this way. I want to stay, you know, keep my body in this position. And then I want to drive this way. Now, forget about all of those things. I want to do one thing here. I want to feel big. That's it. So I think it's a great way of just simplifying all of those complications regarding your bowling action. And I think every fast bowler really should do that. And there are many different ones. Like some people want to go straight through the crease. I've heard that before. You know, I just want to run straight down at the batsman. For Saqib, it's I want to feel big. So I think as an analogy, it's very, very good because it's simple.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's all he's doing. He's saying for him, it's just a term, but that term then triggers a whole kind of chain of events. So for me, if I'm thinking, okay, I'm running into the ball, I want to feel big. So that starts in my run up. I'm upright. I'm running in tall. I'm pumping my legs. I'm driving in. Then when I'm at the crease, I've got a nice jump gather, and I've got that little hold, that brief pause when I'm in the air, and you feel big. And you're in that position. You feel big, and then you know, as Lockie Ferguson said, you know, you bang like a gun when you come over your front leg. That's for me. That's what feeling big is, and just that one phrase affects your whole bowling action from your run up through to when you let go of the ball. As Shahbaz said, you're not thinking about front foot, ankle, where your front foot's facing, your front arm, you're not thinking about any of that stuff. Feeling big, just brings you up, and then you have that. He said it in his PaceBite. He's coming down on the batsman as opposed to through. So especially for a guy that's a little bit more slingy like Saqib, if he can get that little bit of height added in with the slinginess, that's a real good combo. As opposed to, I'm assuming from what he's saying, sometimes it feels like he maybe gets a little bit flat through the crease. He kind of runs through it. So for me, that's what I take from that. And it's a great cue. As you said, it's a simple cue. It's 2 words, feel big. But then for you, you'll know what that means. And everybody's different. As you said, everybody will have their own cues. Everybody will have their own, just things that will resonate in your brain just that little bit differently. So that's something I'd encourage everybody at home that's watching this is to just find a little word or a little phrase that you think just packages everything nicely for you, and then see how it works out for you.
Thank you very much, guys. Also, that standing tall and getting big Now, there's two ways that I look at this really. One being intimidation, and another being, you know, getting a lot out of your action and actually contributing to your bowling. So Shahbaz, in terms of the intimidation, because you would have just mentioned it just now as running at batsmen, and that can play a big part in terms of the mind when you see a bowler run up and he actually comes directly at you and you know, looks in your eye and the whole 9 yards. So Shahbaz, tell us about that factor, because feeling big and then running through, how much does the feeling big and standing tall, how much of a factor do you think that plays in intimidation? Because intimidation is a very important aspect of bowling.
Yeah, again, really, really good question. I feel like the whole intimidation, you know, some people put it on. I know Shoaib Akhtar was, you know, having that huge run up and the entire swagger that he had about him. But I think that intimidation comes quite naturally to a bowler when a bowler's in rhythm and feels quite confident. And it just comes out, they just express it. Like, I've watched Tymal bowl so much and I love his swagger. I love the way he bowls. And I know when he's on song, he's got that little spring in his step, you know, that follow through is just a little bit longer. The eyes are just locked on a little bit longer at a batsman and stuff like that. So I feel like, again, all of these things, all of these cues, what they do is they string all of those complex parts of bowling together. And like Tymal said, it's simple, but it plays such a big part in packaging it all. So I think every fast bowler should have a cue or something to just simplify things for them. If I remember correctly, Glenn McGrath used to sing songs to himself. Like, for him, I don't think it was really an intimidation thing. It was just a way for him to just distract himself. He'd know what ball he wants to bowl, lock it in his mind, and then sing a song to himself to just distract himself and just focus on executing the ball. You know, for someone like Saqib, it's feeling big in his action. So all of those things come together. So I feel like intimidation, it comes from being in rhythm and just feeling good about yourself. And simple cues like feeling big in your action can contribute to you getting into rhythm because you're not thinking too much. You're just going through the motions. You're feeling your bowling. So I feel like, yeah, it's all quite all encompassing, but definitely I think you want to see an intimidating fast bowler. You definitely see that when they've got a spring in their step and they're in a bit of rhythm.
And Tymal, I don't know if you want to comment on the intimidation, because as Shahbaz said, you do a bit of it as well in terms of running at batsmen.
It's easy. It's a lot easier to try and be intimidating when you're not being hit for six and things like that. So if you're getting smacked about and then you're still carrying on trying to give it the big one, then you might be looking a little bit of a fool. But yeah, look, as Shahbaz said, and as we've said kind of throughout this, it's just bringing that package together, that perfect delivery, whatever. The perfect delivery probably doesn't exist, but as close to as possible. What can you do to simplify the process to get the maximum benefits and the maximum outcome? As I've said, and as I'm sure I will say in future shows we do, when you're running into bowl, you don't want to be thinking about 3, 4, 5 different things. You want to be thinking about one thing, 2 things maximum. What ball you want to deliver? That should be, in my opinion, the one thing that you want to be thinking about. That's executing that one delivery, what you're going to do. And then if you have a cue or something that helps you from the technical side of the game, you know, as we've said a few times now, for Saqib, it was feel big. That should, in theory, take care of everything that's not delivering the ball. So, you know, at the end of your mark, feel big. That takes care of your run up, your delivery, your action, all that. And then the rest of the way, you're just focusing on, okay, I'm bowling a Yorker, I'm bowling a back of the length, bowling an in swinger, I'm bowling an out swinger. That's for me. That's the biggest thing.
That's lovely. That is.
Yeah, thanks for that.
That's really, really good.
For sure. And one last thing I want to touch on before we leave. I know, guys, for those watching, must be disappointed that we have to wrap up, but we could talk for hours and hours, but we don't want to let all out the bag because we have some very special episodes coming up for you guys. Now, we have this intimidation side of things, guys, where you run at batsmen, sorry. Another thing that I find intimidating, as Saqib said, is actually just standing tall. And I'm going to give you an example. Jason Holt is someone that I think stands tall. I think he could stand a bit taller because you look at his release points. I think it could be a bit higher for the height that he has. But being tall allows him to hit the deck very hard. And hitting the deck hard, you know, is a difference between a bowler that's just probably quick through the air and kisses the surface. You have bowlers that are hit the deck hard and rush batsmen. So they may not be the quickest, like an 80 mile per hour bowler like Jason Holt, but still very penetrating and very powerful with his bowling. So I want to touch on him and those types of bowlers as well. Tymal, you start in terms of hitting the deck hard. How important would you say it is? And for those out there that want to hit the deck hard, how would you say are some ways that you can as well?
Yeah, again, look, just circling back again to the feel big thing, that might, again, I'm just thinking about how that would work for me, that cue would work for me. That might just allow me to get a little bit more over the top of the ball, change the trajectory of the ball path. So we're talking fractions here, millimeters, 1%ers, whatever. But if you're just coming down a little bit, you're staying a little bit taller, and you're coming down, the ball's traveling downwards a little bit more than flat, then you're going to get that fraction more bounce. Hopefully you're playing on a surface that allows it, or even if you're not, if you're playing on a slow, low surface, you might be able to extract that extra little bit of bounce from a dead pitch or a green wicket, whatever you're playing on. So I think it's really important that we all have those days where you've got a ball that's not swinging, it's flat. Sorry, the pitch is flat. There's no swing, there's no seam, nothing. You've got to try and make something happen. And as fast bowlers, that's where we really kind of earn our money and you prove your value to the team. Is when things aren't going well. It's easy when it's seaming around, it's flying through to the keeper, whatever. Those are the fun times. When it's not going that way, you're however many overs into your spell, you're playing club cricket, team of 200 for 3 or whatever, and you're going to need to try and break a partnership. These are the type of cues that could potentially help you to make that happen and make the difference, and really get the most out of your action, out of the ball you're bowling with, out of the pitch that you're playing on. How do you make a difference, and how can you make that happen?
Yeah, Shahbaz, finally comment on that, because as I said, we don't have much time, but I want to hear from you and tell us also, if you can, don't let too much out, but how can a bowler at home hit the deck hard in the nets?
Yeah, great question. Just echoing on what Tymal said as well. I think certain bowlers' style permits them to be quite tall at the crease. I think, you look at someone like Sean Tate, getting him to try and stay tall in his action is going to be quite hard because he's got this huge delivery stride. He collapses quite heavily at the front foot. So for him to try and, get tall and come down and hit the deck quite hard is going to be a different feeling to him compared to someone like a Glenn McGrath and a Jason Holder. Because I'd put Glenn and Jason Holder in a similar sort of category in terms of the style of their bowling. So I feel like, as Tymal said, it's all about that feeling that you have when you're bowling, So whether you get that split second more to come down and hit the wicket, whether that's coming from a placebo that you've got in your mind, or whether that's coming from you actually staying taller, don't worry about that. Just it's a feeling. That's all. You're trying to have that feeling, and I've had that myself. When Saqib said that he wants to feel like he's coming down on the wicket as opposed to floating it, I know exactly what he's talking about, because I know that feeling of driving over your front foot with a lot of force. And I know that feeling where it feels like that first step after your follow through is almost not there anymore, because it just feels weak. Like you just kind of passively just come through with that in your follow through. So I feel like trying to stay tall in your action, again, depends on the style of bowler you are. That's the first thing. And yeah, it's about using that cue to your advantage and simplifying it. That second question you asked me there, Nikhil, sorry, what was that again?
How can a bowler at home, how can they hit the deck hard?
Hit the deck hard. For me personally, and this is something I experienced over the years, the more I tried to hit the deck hard, the more I never did. Until I actually just relaxed and just let my body go through the motions. Right in that split second in the end, I was able to actually hit the deck really hard. So it was something that I learned after about 15 years of trying to bowl, that the more you try to force things, the less they're probably going to happen. So just let your body do its thing. And timing, this is what timing is all about, which I'm sure we will speak about in future shows. But for me, hitting the deck hard is all about timing.
This is so much value. Of course, the first episode ever of UnPublished, really special to me. And I think for those watching out there, you're never going to get, free content like this from a world-renowned fast bowler like Tymal Mills and somebody that knows so much from like Shahbaz. So I would suggest, send this to all of your friends. There's a lot of people out there that want to be fast bowlers. And I think this is such a great platform to learn and And, you know, Pace Journal, the Instagram page, we've got our own social as well, Unpublished as well. So, yeah, I would just say to everyone out there, keep locked on to this channel. I want to hear the final comments from you guys. How have you enjoyed the first Unpublished episode? Tymal, you can go first.
Yeah, man, it's good to get it on the road. I've obviously been involved with Pace Journal a few months now. People might probably haven't heard as much from me as what they thought they might have. We've got a lot of stuff planned in the future. This is kind of the first step of what we're going to hopefully really ramp things up over the next weeks and months. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, you know, every kind of 10 days, 2 weeks or so, we'll drop a video and we'll just talk fast bowling, and we'll talk about a couple of points that we thought have been really good throughout the series. So yes, it's been a good start, and as I said, we've got a lot to talk about moving forward.
And Shahbaz, just before you come in, I think it would be only right if you explain to the watchers, the viewers, they might say Unpublished. What sort of name is that? Tell us the reasoning behind this name.
Yeah, so again, there's different tiers of information that we give out, okay? So you've got your PaceBite, which is the first tier. You've then got the caption, which includes some key points, which is the second tier. This is the third tier. And one thing that I've noticed as myself as a fast bowler wanting to learn, and from listening to the community, that 9 times out of 10, we want to hear the same thing again and again, because it just gives us confidence. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Tymal, because again, like, I could say something to somebody, you could say something to somebody, Nikhil, but when Tymal says it, it means something else, because it's coming from Tymal Mills, you know, the 95-mile-an-hour man who's played for England. So it's cricket and sport is, in my opinion, it's all about confidence. So the aim of this show is just to try and give viewers that little bit more confidence, that, you know, by going into a little bit more detail about a particular PaceBite. The reason it's called Unpublished is because we wanted to try and make this a relaxed atmosphere. Everything on the journal is quite, you know, official, quite polished. This is almost the unpublished side of it, where we're just trying to be easy, have a laugh, and just enjoy the chat. So hopefully in the future we'll have some guests come on and contribute as well with us. But yeah, that's pretty much the breakdown behind the name.
Well, guys, you heard it, Unpublished. I love the show. I love the idea. I love the concept. Thank you all so much for watching. And as Tymal would have said, you know, every 10 to 14 days, we're going to be back for producing another special episode for you. So stay locked on. It's a place where you can learn a lot. So I just want to, you know, encourage you guys to keep supporting. And we're looking forward to breaking down some more PaceBites from the very talented Saqib Mahmood and many more guests in the future. So thanks a lot for watching, and do be safe.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Welcome to the Pace Judge.